So in Pokemon, there are moves that are called pivot moves, and essentially what they're moves like U-turn that allows you to switch out your Pokemon after you use a move. These are really good and are much better usually than just switching out your Pokemon mandatory, because essentially what they do is the main use of them are just gain knowledge and like trying to get a better matchup from your opponent. So, for example, let's say I have a Crobat out, and I was going to switch out into something like electric type, let's say Tapu Koko, but your opponent switches out into an Extra Drill. I can instead U-turn, and instead of using something like Tapu Koko that could possibly get damaged from that, I could have just bring out something that's strong against it. For example, let's say Lando T, right? That's much better for an Extra Drill than I would have for Tapu Koko. And these are the main uses of pivot moves, except for a few others, which can be used for much better options too. And like I said in the beginning, U-turn is probably the most well-known and probably one of the best, if not the best, pivot moves out of any other move there is. So U-turn is a move that's bug type, it's 70 base power and 100% accuracy. And pretty much every Pokemon has U-turn. A lot less has it in Generation 9, but back then there's a whole bunch of Pokemon that has U-turn, right? And it's probably the best out of all of them because unlike something like, let's say, Volt Absorb or Flip Turn, there are no Pokemon that are immune to bug types, right? And even Pokemon that have access to, let's say, Volt Switch, like, let's say Tapu Koko, they rather run U-turn over Volt Switch because Volt Switch, you have Pokemon that are immune to it, like ground types, and which is the main axis of what you want to do. You never want your electric type to be able to fight a ground type, right? So you can just use U-turn instead of Volt Switch, and then it won't be immune. But don't get it wrong. Volt Switch is still a really good move. It's a 70 base power, basically just electric U-turn, and most electric types have it, right? And any Pokemon that doesn't have U-turn will use Volt Switch instead, because again, Volt Switch in switching out your Pokemon is just a really, really good move. You do have to be more careful against Pokemon with a Volt Switch instead of U-turn, because U-turn you can just do it whenever, because like nothing's really weak against it or resisted. I mean, immune to it. But with Volt Switch again, you kind of have to worry a little bit more. And then there's Flip Turn, which is essentially Water type U-turn, but a little bit weaker, 60 base power, right? And in Generation 9, there's only a very little Pokemon that has Flip Turn, right? Before in Generation 8, a lot more Water types had access to it, but I guess they just wanted to get rid of it. I don't know why, but it's essentially Water type U-turn. It's a little bit better than Volt Switch because there's a lot less Pokemon that are immune to it, but there still is some Pokemon, like let's say Gastrodon, who has access to Storm Drain. They can't really switch out then. But overall, you should be fine. You probably don't have to worry about that. And then there's different ones other than the damaging ones. There are moves like Parting Shot, which essentially what they are is that mostly dark types have these moves, right? Most dark types have Parting Shot, and what it does is that you can switch out, and then your opponent, let's say I have Crobat, right? My Crobat loses one attack and one special attack by one stage. And this is really good. I mean, you can't really complain about lowering stats, right? Unless I have like something like Defiant, otherwise I would suck, right? But yeah, overall, it's a pretty good move and might be considered better than U-turn depending on who you are. But again, very little Pokemon has access to it compared to U-turn. So like, yeah, just letting you know. And a really new one that been added in Generation 9 is Shed Shell. And what Shed Shell is basically, let's say, U-turn, but you get to switch out your Pokemon, and then you give the Pokemon that's new a substitute, which basically gives you your switch-in Pokemon free access to being switched in. You get to have a new Pokemon you want, and possibly, let's say you have a flying type, for example, Crobat again, you have Shed Shell onto it, and let's say they use a ground type move, Earthquake. You don't get damage at all, and you get a substitute. So basically, extra HP. And that's not bad. And the Pokemon who has it are actually really, really good. Cyclizard is really fast with Regenerator, probably the best Shed Sheller to be used. Obviously, there's only two, which the speed stat makes it really, really good with Regenerator. And an Ore form is still pretty good. It's bulky, it has a good typing, and a really good ability, right? So overall, Shed Shell is a really good move. You could argue it's better than U-Turn again. The thing is, there's only very few Pokemon that have it though, so that's sad. And then the other one is Teleport. Unlike U-Turn, where you want to go first first and being able to switch out and understanding it, Teleport is mainly trying to switch out your Pokemon, getting knowledge, but also making sure your Pokemon don't get hit. For example, like Shed Shell, kind in a way, right? And the most Pokemon would be able to use it was Pokemon like Chansey, Blissey, Clefairy, that kind of stuff. But now in Generation 9, again, a lot of Pokemon lost access to it, and only Glade Gardevoir have it, right? And they don't really want to use Teleport because that's not their type of thing. So like it's a good move, but like not many Pokemon have access to it no more, which kinda hinders it, right? And this is what I don't understand, which is chilly reception, right? So it's basically just teleport, which creates snow instead, and you get to switch out your Slowking, which don't make any sense. I think Slowking and Slowbro should have just kept teleport, because this makes no sense to me. So, snow right now isn't that good of a weather effect right now. It's either sun or rain right now, and snow is not really that good. And I don't really understand why Slowking has access to it. It just doesn't make any sense to me right now. I mean, I understand, like, it's supposed to be like, oh, he's trying to tell a funny joke, but no one understands, like a dad joke, right? But I don't really understand this one. And this is probably the most broken one that's not legal, which is why I didn't say it's like the best. So Baton Pass is a pivot move that, let's say you have Swords Dance and Speed Boost, Ninjask, right? I just set up with it, right? And then I can switch out with Baton Pass and give it to something like, let's say, Crobat again, because I like Crobat, that's all. And you get the stat boost from the switch out. And this is great. This is actually really, really good. Now, it is banning competitive Pokemon because it's just too strong of an ability. Because let's say you just have, again, Swords Dance, Speed Boost, uh, what did I say? Ninjask, right? This is way too powerful and just really, really good. So, like, you can't really have this into the game and will just make the game really, really toxic. So, they are kind of just in a banned loop and you can't really use it. There are a lot of Pokemon that have access to it actually. So yeah. Anyways, these are all the pivot moves and how they work and what they do, right? So yeah. Thank you for watching and goodbye.